Hi, and welcome to Just Trying Dad. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Just Trying Dad. Chiedo Dogu here, and I am excited for this. So it's the holidays, and I wanted to do a holiday Q&A, something to give you guys a little bit more insight into me. I know we did the pilot episode, but this is something different where questions have been sent in by some listeners, give you guys a sense of me and my background and my style as a father and all the interesting things that I never get to talk about in the conversations that I've had with guests so far. So with that, I wanted to introduce a very special guest, the first non-dad guest of the pod, Adaeze Oduma. Adaeze is my cousin, and she is going to be asking me questions, and hopefully I can answer them. Welcome, Adaeze. How's it going?
Hi, thank you for having me. It's going really good. I'm excited to be here. Been here since day one. But I'm excited to ask you these questions and get more of your perspective.
Happy to hear the questions. Hopefully I can answer them and hopefully I can do them justice. I wanted to say a big thank you to you for listening right off the bat, giving me feedback, giving me constructive criticism, all the things that I needed to be able to make this show better. And so that's why I wanted to have you on, because for me, that kind of dedication and that kind of support definitely hit home, and I appreciate it. So yeah, and if you don't mind, give us an introduction in a sense of who you are, what you currently do right now, and what you aspire to do in the future.
I'm currently in college, so I'm a senior in college right now. I'm studying psychological science and education sciences, so double majoring over here. I guess in the future, public health is something that I want to go into, community health, and there's a lot of things that tie into that. One of them especially also being like child development and parent education, which is why this podcast was of interest to me. How, especially during this time period and how things are changing, what people like you are doing and trying to figure out the best ways to like raise your children, but also just like take care of them in general, because they're also children are part of the community. Parents are part of the community. So that's a little bit about me and kind of what I want to do in the future.
That's impressive. You're just going to slyly mention the double major and just think we're going to walk away from it. But I couldn't even dream of double majoring in my best days, but I know you're going to do well. And you're setting yourself up very well to be an expert that comes back on the pod to talk about just what the field is talking about, what the latest science is about, raising kids and things like that. I appreciate you being on here. So yeah, from now on, this is your show, and I'm scarily handing over the reins to you to ask the questions. So feel free to fire away.
Yeah. Okay. I'm the scared one now. But yeah, we'll start off with the first question, the one that everybody wants to know. What was your motivation for starting the podcast?
For me, I've always wanted to do something within the creative space. I think with most people, it's always about finding your passion, finding your fit, finding what you think your calling is. And I really feel like my world came alive when I had kids. I literally had kids that are my best friends and I like to hang out with, and they teach me so much. So for me, it's always been about them. And during the pandemic, it was just me and them even more and more than I've already been plugging in. So it was always a no-brainer. As soon as the title came about, Just Trying, because that's all I strive to do, to try. I'm not perfect. I'm not going to knock it out the park. I am still learning and unlearning a lot of things as a person who was raised in the African continent and Nigeria in the traditional sense. And so for me, it's just realizing that there are a lot of parents that are going through that. There are a lot of parents that, didn't necessarily grow up like me or through the same situations like me, but they're just trying to be better. They're just trying to provide the best life for their kids. They're just trying not to mess them up in any way. So I did this to let them know you're not alone. There's many of us just like that, and there's help out there.
It's so funny because, something that you said, right? Like we learned, that a lot of the things that we grew up with or the ways that we were raised as children, we now recognize that those things may not have been the best things. And so in going into parenthood, trying to make sure that we don't repeat those same mistakes. While at the same time, I know you mentioned it in one of the other episodes, like also giving grace to your parents, because also too, like that they are also human beings. That they are also human beings, and now you get to be on that other side and see like how difficult the balance is, while also recognizing because they didn't know better, I'm going to do better. And that's something that I appreciate, because a lot of my friends and I were talking about it, unpacking childhood traumas, and really kind of pinpointing where some things might have gone wrong. But also now in the process of adulthood, those of us who are not parents yet, like parenting ourselves to get some of those things that we didn't get. So it's really nice to
Mm-hmm.
see parents like you being proactive and really kind of thinking about what's best for your child, but also what's best for you and the relationship that you want to have in the future. So that's just something that I thought was very interesting. So I guess the next question, what was your delivery experience like? You have two wonderful, wonderful, wonderful children who I have met. Very interesting people. So just curious to know, like, what was your experience with those pregnancies and those deliveries and kind of like that first year?
I am 100% unprepared for this question because I didn't think about it. I know I saw it come in, but I didn't necessarily think about it now. But for me, it is, you're taking me back almost 6, 7 years now for the first one, Penelope. I think I said in a previous, I don't know if it was a previous episode or something, where it's like, it felt like plug and play because
Mm.
my wife, Peggy, who's refused to come on this pod, is a superhero. She took everything throughout the journey like a champ. I was scared the whole time from when we got pregnant to the point we were going to doctor's visits, going in to see ultrasounds and whatever doctor's appointment was needed, any tests, they put you through the paces. And I didn't read anything. I hadn't done anything besides, I basically stayed away from kids. Kids loved me growing up. They just wanted, I could calm any kid down. I had that magic touch, but my thing was I can always give them back to their parents, and that was fine. So I didn't do any more research into it. I was like, I'm just going to go into it and just hopefully being a natural, it will kind of come to me. But that was far from the case, because you go through ultrasound, and that's the point where you're in the room and you're there and you're scared and you're trying to figure out how that looks like a head or a tail or whatever it is, and you're trying to imagine what the kid's going to look like and visualize what they're going to come out like. And for me, with my anxiety and my whole like trying to look forward to look 30 years into the future into who they're going to be, it was just making sure that every step of the way we were doing everything that we needed to do, meeting all the milestones, meeting all the timelines. You get scared by everything because it's like, oh, what are they seeing now? What's happening here? You have to do a Down syndrome test, or you have to do like a blood sugar test or things like that. And in every single opportunity, there is the fear that something might go wrong. Luckily, that wasn't the case. And we wanted to be totally and utterly surprised by the delivery, which is apparently a very hard thing to do in this day and age, because either a technician or a nurse practitioner or somebody who is in charge of the process, who you go see, who's not your actual primary care doctor, has the opportunity to blurt it out without your permission. So
Did that
if
happen?
you're going through the process, it happens to a lot of people. It didn't necessarily happen to us.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was about to happen, but like, I'm very OCD in the sense that I know that stuff is going to happen like that. And I'm just like, before we started the meeting, I was like, I know we don't normally see you, but we also don't want to know. So it's like, you have to advocate for yourself. Otherwise, they're just going to take you through their process, because they too, they're human. Them. I think before we sat down with one of our third party providers who looked like she was about to blurt it out, I was like, oh, we don't want to know. And so that saved us. She was like, yeah, thank you for telling me, because I was about to tell you the gender. Yeah, I think that's one of the key takeaways. Like, if you really don't want to know, and if you're not kind of fake, I don't want to know, open the conversation with your, so it's kind of like open the conversation with your pronoun, open the conversation with your preference, so that you're not surprised, that you're not annoyed by it. The rest of the delivery process was smooth. My wife kind of handheld me through it.
The irony.
Every milestone week, she would make me take a picture, like almost like a mugshot of her belly and how it was progressing. And for the first two kids, like first two, this is it, we're done. But for the two kids, like she looked like, she didn't look like she was pregnant, which was something that freaked me out as well. She looked like, I don't know, she just looked like she had a slightly big tummy. So like nobody could tell that she was pregnant, and it was like only me. And for me, I've seen pregnant women before. I've seen pregnant women. I don't know what that is. I don't know what's happening there. Is this normal? Is this right? Is this okay? And it's like, what's appropriate to ask? Like, what am I going to tell her at this point? So that's a part of the anxiety that you're going through. Like, oh, is the baby too small? Like, I've seen pregnant women that look 10 times bigger than you look, and you're still doing more of the stuff that most people don't do. Like, you're running, you're taking long walks, you're exercising, you're doing squats. I'm just, what's happening here? Like, this is different. Like, I don't understand what you're doing right now, but this is not what the typical portrayal of pregnancy looks like. And then in the process, we didn't deal with any of the morning sickness or any kind of the traditional things that people kind of go through. She was and is a superhero. What I would note is that I did have to make frequent late night trips to the grocery store for cravings that made no sense. Till
Mm.
this day, if I smell another guava, I will throw it out the house. Like, it's just like she was doing like guava and ice cream, guava and mangoes, very odd combinations. But I was like, oh, hey, if it gets me out the house for a second, and if it gets you
Mm.
what you need,
Mm.
I'll do it. And there's also a part of the journey where, in solidarity, I gave up alcohol. I think I did. I did. Yes, I gave up alcohol and all the things that she couldn't do. And so, like, we were just basically going through it together. The one thing is, people tend to say that they gain weight together and eat, kind of because they're
Mm.
eating in sympathy and things like that. But I didn't do any of that. I think I just kind of stayed more stressful, nervous metabolism, just making sure that I burn everything off. And then, whenever I could take a chance to run and do whatever exercises I could, I tried, because I know when the kids come, it's all shut down. So yeah, it was good.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what happened in both times, both places. Outside of us kind of realizing that, okay, we lived in an apartment, now we have to move into a proper house then and set up the cribs and everything,
Mm.
and all the things that need to be done. Yeah, it was very interesting. Where the drama really starts, and where I should probably get to, is the day of the delivery. And this is
Mm.
maybe a month into the target delivery. So Penny was scheduled to be an August birthday, and then she came in July. And the day of, sorry, Peggy was just like, just all of a sudden just sluggish and just tired. And the usually high energy person was just like, no, I don't want to do anything. I'm just going to stay in bed. But we do need to go to the
Mm.
laundromat, and I do need you to go to the laundromat and go do these bulk loads. And so I was like, okay, you kind of just do them in the house here. It's like she was like, it's not big enough. It's just going to wet it and not wash it. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to go.
Mm.
So I went, and maybe an hour or two into like washing a bulk load and like trying to dry it for the second time, because the first, I put less quarters in and it didn't work out the way it needed to. It didn't dry. Yeah, she was like, oh, my water broke. And I was just like, I'm just going to go. So
Go it. Let's go.
I'm running out of there. I'm like driving like a madman to get back to the house. I'm thinking about every movie scene about how, water's breaking, babies here, heads basically popping out. And I get there and she's just
Mm.
like, I called the primary care physician, everybody who's gonna take care of her with the birth plan. The bags were packed the day before. We'd done a hospital visit a month or two before, and so it was just basically
Wow.
like picking up all the stuff that was everywhere, all the to-go bags. The only thing I hadn't done was like set up the car seats and things like that, because I thought I had a month. And so
Right.
it was just, you realize, and I don't think we had done a baby shower too, so that's another thing. Like, basically she came before the baby shower, and she was at her own baby shower, so a few babies can say that.
Mm.
But she was yeah, so I get there and she's like, oh, I've called her what I need to do, just don't panic, we don't need to go, you have to. I was like, I had bags, I had coats, I had jackets, everything. And she's like, just chill, just, everything's going progressing. I'm just gonna go take a shower. I was like, you're gonna take a shower? She's like, yeah, this is my last opportunity to take a shower, because once I get into the hospital, it's like poking and prodding and this and that. And I was like, how do you know all
Mm.
this? All right, and why aren't you willing to be surprised by all this? Like, she was just like planning for everything. 30 minutes after I get back home, we get in the car, call everybody that needs to know that this is happening, and then get to the hospital and just realize that there was, you think, and you never know, you think there's probably a couple more hours, but it was, or maybe 20 hours or whatever it is. But yeah, we got into triage. I learned about the dilation scale, the pain scale, all those things. And then,
Mm.
long and story short is maybe an hour or two after we got to the hospital, Penelope was here. And
Wow.
so, yeah, that was kind of like the opener to everything. But it was really a blessed experience, because all the stuff I was gearing up for, none of that happened. I don't even think we had an epidural this time. I think she kind of just, like I said, superheroed it out. I'm indebted to her for just making that experience as smooth as possible. But with Paxton, which I would just zoom through, like, it was basically plug and play from the beginning. But the only difference was the delivery. We
Mm.
were at the playground when her water broke, and then I'm, headless chicken again. And Penelope's like, what's going on with Dada? And she was 3 and she was just looking around. So it was very
Mm.
interesting to just go through that again, and realize that nothing
Mm.
different happened. I was still the same nervous wreck, and my wife was still the one calming everything down. There was a video that she was taking of me just kind of like forgetting where everything was and just losing my mind. And from time to time she sends me that video just to torment me. But that is
Mm.
me. That is where I mean, I'm not cool, calm, and collected at all. But yeah, so we get to the hospital. The midwife who was in charge of delivery at the time at the hospital was also pregnant and went into labor.
Mm.
At the same time. So like half the way
Oh my
through I
gosh.
was like, wait, where's she? And she was like, oh, she had to go. She the water broke, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is not gonna be good. So it was interesting. We started that off that way, and then you go through the phases, and then you have a situation where I don't know. She this time around she was like, oh, she needs the epidural, and I was like, I don't think you do, and I was like, okay, not for me to say that you do or do not, but I don't know that you do. I think you're like, my hand was telling me that she did, like she was squeezing it, and it was almost like broken, and so I was like, okay, you know what, let's do it. Like, it's your call. You know your body. You're the superhero here. You're the one doing all the work here. I'm just holding your hand and supporting. And we ended up getting it. And the part that still pisses me off to this day is the fact that the first epidural didn't work. So they came in and did one, and it didn't work. And then so we wait a couple minutes. She's like, nothing's happening. And then they do another one, and then it was too late. All it did was the baby's head was then at that point was out at that point in time, and she couldn't push now, so it basically had to be pulled out because you couldn't feel anything. But they charge you twice, so I was like, yeah, this is interesting. I think at the time I was still like frothing because it was like maybe $1,000 per shot.
Oh my god!
Yeah, it was kind of one of those things. I was like, yeah, okay, I know we needed it, but it was still one of those things where you wish the first one worked, and it's like there's no guarantees. But yeah, so everything was smooth. Everything was okay. Babies were here, and like you said, we're where we are. So definitely happy for the journey and where we got to.
Wow, those two experiences are they're like you said, like they were for the most part the same, only the slight differences. The fact that the midwife went into labor, that seems like something that would like happen like in the movies,
in a movie, yeah.
Or like in TV shows. So you're like, is this real? You're like, is this really going on?
Yeah, it kind of took me, it shocked me because it was one of the things where, when you like things the way you like them and you're going through a birth plan and then spanner in the works, you just kind of try not to panic and wish her well and realize that she too is a person and has her own birth plan. And so we got to do what we got to do and pivot and adjust. So, yeah. I'm pretty surprised and not surprised at the individual human capacity to handle the things they think they can't. I'm just like, I'm blown away by how we're able to stretch and be better and do more than we think we give ourselves credit for. So yeah, no, even thinking about your parents' experience, thinking about people out there's experiences, like it's been trying, testing, but we do it every day and we surmount these mountains. It's interesting to know that you're not alone, and it's comforting to know that we can, whatever come up, what may in the future, we can handle it. So yeah.
Your beautiful children, they're here now, living their lives. What is your day-to-day with them like? Like, what's the routine? What's their schedule?
I want to say it's pretty standard in the sense that we've had it down to a science now. We've had a couple of years to do it, but it was trial and error for a bit in the beginning. There's points where we didn't know what we were doing. At this points where you're basically just doing feeding, and you're basically it's like wrestlers. You're tag teaming. Like, okay, it's your turn now. Let's go, high five, go in and do a job, and don't call me until it's my turn. Especially with like breastfeeding and being 3 hours every night and things like that, and trying to sleep and get the kids down to a sleep cycle. So those I call the easy days because babies they are timed. They go, some of them go like clockwork, and it is very interesting to realize that if I knew what I knew now, I would have taken more advantage of the breaks that I had, where it's like I'd have been like, oh, you're getting sleep and things like that. But even then, sleep wasn't too bad. It's now that when they start teething, growing, object permanence, seeing things that they like, that's when sleep goes out the window. So kids that were usually good sleepers, staying in their room, all over the place. So I sleep less now. But yeah, so a day-to-day routine is such that I like to be very involved in everything, and to the point where I do it with excitement and with vigor and with fun and song and dance, and they just want me to do it every time. So it's like I do myself a disservice because it's not just bath time. It's bath time with show tunes and music and Disney tunes and any song that I think they would like, and it's bubble baths, which drives my wife crazy because it wastes a lot of water. And it's realizing, okay, so now we have time. We don't have time. We have to go catch the school bus or whatever it is. But just realizing that there's those things, and so they love me doing everything in service of them.
Yeah.
But the thing that we kind of have a struggle with typically is like getting dressed and getting out the door, because they're independent thinkers and they want to wear pirate costumes. They want to wear Frozen costumes on days when it's frigid outside. So you just have to kind of fight that fight with them. And usually, like, I never get anywhere because I'm fun dad. So it's like, they're like, you should be letting us do this. And then I have to go call in the big guns and say, hey, then their mom comes in and says, no, it's 37 degrees outside. You have to wear you have to wear boots, socks, and long pants and long sleeves. So there's definitely that whole tag team and different styles and different approaches. I'm goodish cop, and my wife's just the best cop ever. So yeah, we just kind of play that tag team role. So in situations where, so I don't fall into behaviors of either kind of getting extra frustrated or yelling or things like that. I just know when to kind of step back and say, hey, mom's going to tell you what to do, and reinforce the point, versus me kind of going over the top, and then they're yelling, I'm yelling, we're all crying, and then it's just not nice. So I'm happy and blessed in that regard, where you can kind of counterbalance. And usually when she says something, they take it for gospel, or they're like, oh, so that I wasn't lying, or that I wasn't joking, or that I wasn't kidding. I'm happy and blessed with that balance. But everything else is, getting them food, which is an issue, getting them to play, they're picky eaters, so food is always going to be an issue, and then getting them out to school, and then things like that. So yeah, well, our routine's pretty standard, and then they come back, and then it's bedtime, which is a whole another dramedy. So I don't know that there's anything special about our routine. We do certain things in between in each routine, which I'm trying to get to, that makes everything kind of entertaining. Like when I used to pick them up from school, when they went to the same school, I used to put like Disney soundtracks and have like fruit snacks and snacks they love, and keep them pacified because they were missing their mom, because she was the normal one that used to pick them up, and then she started working somewhere else, and so I had to do all that. So with that, I had to compensate with just being extra fun. And even now, we've had to wean them off of that, because that's not always sustainable. Or you realize that when you give them too much snacks in the car, or just snacks in general in the car, it delays dinner time, which delays bedtime, which delays your sleep time. Right. We're trying to kind of
schedules are the same.
Exactly. So I'm trying to kind of realize, so we've totally weaned them off of car snacks, and give them a choice in anticipation of what's for dinner, what on the board would you like to have for dinner, and then they pick, and then we make it together. So far, I would say, like in the current state, like grilled cheese is a big hit, and I make the best grilled cheese in the world. So apparently I'm going to take that as a compliment to my grave. So it is really fun to be able to kind of, so now they didn't used to eat this, now they eat this. So it's like with our journey with broccoli, with grilled cheeses, with spaghetti and meatballs, just whatever it is, it's now less food is on the floor and on the plate and in their belly, more in their belly. So that's all I care about. So the most interesting part of our routine is probably bedtime, because I like to do a bunch of fun things to kind of stimulate them, and then get them ready to shut down and get excited outside of them talking about their days and how everything was going, which is very important about just being able to recollect and remember their day. We do a puppet show with all the stuffies that they have, and I do voices. It's a whole thing. It's embarrassing really from my hard guy exterior, but it's really fun to be able to see them kind of light up, and just like Minnie's talking to me, or Donald Duck is talking in a Donald Duck voice, and Mickey in a Mickey voice, and any animal that they have I bring to life in a puppet show. So it's kind of really fun. And then one of the things I kept doing, and this is partly because I am a slow reader or mildly dyslexic. When I used to travel as a consultant, I used to record books for them and have their smart speaker play it. And so that's something that they've just caught on to, and they want me to do now. So it's almost our way of like ripping every book that we've ever had and memorializing it in the cloud, so they can hear my voice whenever they want to. So they come into their room and they're just like, okay, Google, talk to my story time. And every book I've ever read for them, every book we've ever rented for the library is on there in my reading. Sometimes they like to hear the books where they were disturbing me in the background and hear their voices. And we do that for like a 30-minute span, and it's so interesting to just see all the books they love to read. Like, there's a book about not being afraid of the dark, which I ripped from Star Trek Discovery, the new series where with the black lead. And so it was really, really fun to kind of take that book, write down the story, add mine to it, just to help them not be afraid of the dark. They have everything from Green Eggs and Ham on there. So it's probably one of the funnest part. That's the part I look to the most. Get them hype, ready to sleep, and then they kind of finally seen them snore. It's not always as easy as I would like it to be, but at the end of the day, they go down. Either because I have to, hold both their hands while they sleep or whatever it is, but it works. In the early days, we realized that, toys have no place. If you're not a stuffy, you have no place in the bedroom. Gone are the days when I'm going to be stepping on Legos, or Elsa is going to undo all my hard work by lighting up and just like lighting up a room. No. So stuffies are downstairs, or no, toys are downstairs, or Legos blocks are downstairs or in their toy room. Nothing. If there's a toy, I I take it out and just expunge it from the room. So it's really, really fun to be able to do that, and just make sure when you're up here for showtime and sleep, and that's it.
I love that. I mean, because like you said, you do things with intention, and you want to do things with vigor. It is the bare minimum. I'm not gonna lie,
right.
But at the same time, so I'm like thinking like, oh my gosh, people are listening to this like, wow, you do all of this and this and that. And it is the bare minimum, but also another thing too is that like you are able to do this.
I struggle with that balance all the time. I take pride in my work and I want to, do all these things. So I have to be able to strike that balance. I have to be able to kind of realize that, okay, at some point in time, so I can do my best.
Right.
I could do my very, very best. I could do my above average best. And, and make sure that I'm excelling and being a rock star every day at work. But at the end of the day, the real job that can't go undone is here within these walls, and I have to keep them knowing that they're loved, keep them knowing that they're supported, they're taken care of. And when I didn't necessarily compartmentalize or just realize that, okay, this is not that, it doesn't have to be done now, I would end up trying to rush their enjoyment, and they were like, don't cheat me. No. We want 30 minutes of story time, not 15 minutes and then you go do an email or you go do work. We want 30 minutes. So I just there's no clock in their enjoyment and their bedtime. It's just give them their full due. Otherwise, and with everything, you have to give it its full attention. Otherwise, it's gonna bite you in the face. So, yeah.
And like you said, you talked about all of your work tasks and the things that you have to do in the back of your head, while also making sure that you spend time like with your kids. But how do you spend time like with yourself? Figure out ways to not make being a parent like your whole identity. Right? Because you are a person first. You work at a company, you are a father, you're a husband, you're a friend, but also too, you're you. So how do you make sure that you also feed into yourself the same way that you like feed into your children?
You have to realize that life doesn't stop after you become a parent. Like it's not just a fast train to old age. You're not dead. Nothing brings that to realization than you prioritizing your mental health, and you prioritizing your physical health, and you prioritizing every bit of balance that you require as a human being. Part of this, I think one of the interesting things, and it's a nice segue from what we just talked about, was nothing humanizes you more than having to do a presentation at your kid's school about what it is you do or about anything. So for 2 years running now, I've done what I do. Good luck explaining that to a kid and explaining software as a service to a kid. As much as they loved it and they're like, oh, negotiations and this and contracts and stuff like that, as much as they love it and they asked all the questions and everybody was kind of like, oh, interesting. It humbles you, and you realize that, okay, there's definitely more to life than just work. And it can't just be about work. That is what kind of normalizes you. The other thing I do that's really fun is I recently got introduced to Kwanzaa as a way of kind of giving thanks. And so just realizing what the 7 principles are and how they tie in, and just like trying to teach the kids. And to my daughter's school is like, oh, come do a Kwanzaa presentation and kind of give the kids a general idea, because they know a lot about Hanukkah, they know a lot about Christmas, but Kwanzaa is not known. And so that was kind of fun and doing that. So I like doing things like that. I like being able to like talk about myself in other ways that don't necessarily have to do with just work. I like being able to kind of talk about the things I know, volunteer for different things. I'm never going to be PTA dad. I'm never going to be that person, but just realizing that maybe there's 1 or 2 things I can do here and there that are nice and make me feel like a wholesome, well-rounded individual. So from time to time, volunteering at a soup kitchen, making sure like just taking you back to my college days and feeding people for Thanksgiving. And outside of that stuff and service, which I think goes a long way and people kind of forget, and it's really tough to do now, especially with the pandemic. There's other kind of healthy things I like to do. Like it's like from time to time, it's like running, swimming, taking time to make sure I just leave the kids behind. And because once they go with you, there's a whole another set of anxiety. Are they gonna jump in the pool and then not know how to thread water and forget how to float, or are they just gonna run into traffic when they're running with me, or when they're biking? A couple of times when we go on bike rides and my kids are just new bikers, they forget where the brakes are, and I'm just like, okay, so I want to go on a bike ride by myself to do all these things, or go on my electric scooter and just go out and just like, because you're still relatively young, and so it's all about just realizing that these things happen. And so individually I have to take my time, and even if it's as simple as watching a show, it's as simple as watching a show. Take that time, because if you don't, you're just going to be, all you're doing is parenting and then nothing else. Yeah, Peggy and I try together to either get that break individually or break together. Yeah, one of the fun things that we do that I mean sometimes it's like as simple as the kids are in bed, we've done the bedtime routine, and then we go downstairs and watch a show that reminds us of our youth. So I mean, like things like in watching Insecure, like we're like binge watchers of Insecure. Whenever it comes out, we let like the whole season end and then we watch it all through. We don't care about spoilers, we don't care about anything on the internet. We just kind of watch it all through so it feels like this whole experience in a bubble and very heightened, so you get to see the next episode without kind of feeling like you have to wait till weeks and weeks on end, because who knows when next the kids are going to give us that time. And so sometimes it's just going to our porch and just or our deck and just sitting down and just like I like to say, look at the stars, and she's like, there are no stars in our backyard, but we look out into the nothingness and just have a glass of wine and blankets and just enjoy the time together. Or whenever we can, go into downtown and go to either a lounge or I don't think we're not club people, so we just go to a lounge and just like leave early enough before the crowd arrives, but at least being able to kind of sit down, enjoy people watch, and just imagine different things. So yeah, we definitely tried a few things here and there. So yeah.
But you talked about Insecure as being one of the shows that you watch, that you and your wife like to watch together. Are there any other like favorite things that you like to engage in, like books, movies, podcasts, in your free time?
Definitely. It's just really hard to do. So before it used to be like this whole scattershot, anything and everything you watch or whatever it is. But now I like to be very, very systematic and project manage everything. So even TV, I think one of our cousins showed me an app, and I think it's called My TV Time. Basically, can't always remember the shows I like to watch, but I know when I see it. And so what it does is you enter the show name and then you flag it, and then it keeps reminded or keeps it in your timeline. Oh, you haven't watched episode 5, you haven't watched episode 6. You can even do it for shows that you want to rewatch from back in the day. So it's always, it kind of keeps it front and center. So I've been through all the Apple TV shows, so the C's, the Foundations. If I may pull out my phone because my memory is the worst. I'll tell you what it is. Outside of the sports and the soccer and the Formula One and things like that, and the replays for games, it's telling me that Doctor Who is premiering the new episode tonight. So I watch Magnum PI. I watch Ghosts, which is this ABC show, I think, or CBS show that was adapted from a BBC show, which I think the BBC show is better, but hey, it's still funny. It's equally funny and nice. I watch Be Positive. So yeah, it goes to show that whatever it is that I want to watch or catches my interest, I flag it, I watch it, and if I don't like it, I rage quit it. So basically, I just say, okay, I don't want to watch this anymore, and then I forget about it. But if it's not on this app, I don't watch it. That's kind of how I project manage my TV. But the app doesn't. So the app is strictly just to keep it front of mind. But then you have to have the subscriptions and all the stuff and go to the different sources and get them. For books, as I mentioned, my reading is not great or as fast as I would like it to be. I do a lot of audiobooks.
Me too.
It's amazing how quickly you can get through. And it started with work. All right. So for work, I used to have to read a lot of contracts. In grad school, I used to to have to read a lot of papers. And so one of the tools I use for work is Natural Reader, or just kind of like text to speech technology. I always make sure that whatever it is I have to read, I can OCR it, which is, I forget what the actual acronym is, but I can get the text out of it if it's a PDF. I can copy and paste if it's a Word document and drop it into this software, and then it reads to me whilst I multitask or do other things. It's been a game changer at work. It's been something where I've been using for the last 10 years since grad school, and it has been like, people always like, how are you able to get through that stuff really quickly, faster? I'm like, I have super reading, right? I'm Superman. I'm never going to tell you my secrets. Of course, now I'm telling the whole world on this pod. But it's like,
Right.
it's been so, I mean, when I first started using it, it was one of those things where I was like, oh, hopefully people don't judge me for using it. But when I see the benefits of it and how it translates into being able to kind of read audiobooks really quickly, take notes, get key takeaways from them, and be able to also do multiple things that relate to work or relate to whatever it is you're trying to do. Yeah, it's a no-brainer. So I say that to say that yeah, no, audiobooks are my thing. I've read I most recently, I think I just finished reading the Barack Obama book, and then I read the Children of Blood and Bone, which is the Disney owned fiction book. Historical fiction is by far my favorite. Even with TV shows, it's like, if you do a historical fiction show, you have me. I'm all in, because it's just, you're taking people that didn't exist and putting them next to people that did exist that you probably admire. And one of my favorite shows, I mentioned Doctor Who. The seasons where they were really great was when they took Doctor Who, this fictional character, and put him next to William Shakespeare, or put him next to Queen Elizabeth I. But it's like seeing how he has a rapport with these people and how they gravitate towards him. And it's almost like making that thread that great people across history have something in common. They are great for a reason. That's always nice to see. So almost one of my favorite books to read, and I think there's 8 books right now, and we're waiting on the 9th book, is the Outlander series, which has a TV show. I love thoroughly reading and rereading those books, because it takes you from Scotland to England to North Carolina to New York. And so you get to start to see like people like Governor Tryon, who's the first lieutenant governor of, I think, either New York or North Carolina. But it's like you get to see that, and then you see Tryon Road here, and all those things that come between. But those people never existed in history, the people that were put in those settings. But it's so nice to hear about history in that way, without the pressure of this happened or this didn't happen. So yeah, that's kind of the fun other things I like to do in terms of media and culture and stuff like that.
I also too, I like historical fiction, and the way that you phrased it, I was like, oh, I like it, but I couldn't explain why, and you explained it perfectly for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, speaking about other favorite things, or can you say which one of the episodes that you've recorded so far has been your favorite, and why?
That is like asking me what
You can say this one; it's okay.
Yeah, if that's what you like to hear, then it's this one. That's like asking me what my favorite child is. For the episodes, I think it's such a it's too early to tell. And I think every guest has brought their own unique spin to the show. I love everything that they've done so far. I love everything that they have brought to the show. I appreciate every episode for its own unique characteristics. I appreciated the first one because it was born out of grief and insecurity, whether or not people will think it's too heavy. But absolutely not the case from the ratings and the numbers. But I appreciate the second one because it gave us an idea into delivery process in a different country and how similar or dissimilar it is. I appreciate burnout because it's real and you are a human being and you need to be able to so I wouldn't go through each and every one of them, but I really, really loved every episode, and I will not pick one unless there's a gun to my head.
No problem. No, there's no gun to your head. But it's nice to hear you reflecting on each of the episodes you've done and with all the guests that you've had. And just further highlighting why you brought those people on and why those topics were of importance to you. So the holidays are coming up, or they're already, we're in the midst of the holiday season. What have been some of your traditions so far as a family? Are you doing anything new? Any old traditions that you're keeping up?
I'll tell you the one tradition that we used to do when we were younger, and more alive individuals. We used to run away for the holidays. So like there was a 3 year span, and when we were dating, and before we got married, we would be in Puerto Rico for Thanksgiving. Just whatever island nation that we want to go to, we're just like, I'm not here for the turkey. I'm not here for the traveling. We're just good. No offense to anybody who loves to do that stuff, because we do, but it was just fun for us to be able to kind of establish our own rapport and get to know each other. And I miss those days. And I'm pretty sure there's going to be times when we have done enough of what the kids want to do now, and then we'll be able to mix and match and travel out of the country for the holidays. And I'm looking forward to those days. But right now, I think with kids, it's all about, it's a show. It's a show because you're trying to teach them what the holidays are about, the reason for the season, as well as the commercialized version of the holidays. But you're trying to make sure, because it's like, once it comes down to Thanksgiving, it's they expect certain things, and now that they have expectations, I think we in the earlier days when they were younger and didn't necessarily know anything, we would take them to out of the country. So there's pictures of them during Thanksgiving or during the holidays in San Juan, in the Dominican Republic. So for 2 years, just before Penelope turned 2, we just used to go. And then when she turned 3, and then was like Turkey and all those things, so we had to kind of buckle down and say, okay, now it's time to actually feed into the narrative and get a tradition going. So we had a stay of execution on picking a culture and traditional holiday thing for a good 2 years, and we still were kind of all over the place. And so now it's basically now being able to let her know what the seasons are. Like I said, the reason for the season, Thanksgiving, being thankful, turkey, favorite meals, all those things, family, if we can, and traveling around, or if they're available, or if they're around to come to, or definitely open door policy. But it's all about just, realizing, because over the first couple of years, we struggled through trying to be turkey people, and then realizing that we're not turkey people, or the turkey is just too big, and just not wanting to be wasteful. It's just hard to do. So we ended up just like really coming to our own general idea of what Thanksgiving is, and it's less about the food you put down and more about the people and what you're thankful for. So now they're asking for less and less of turkey. They're more asking for the kind of foods they like to eat: the mac and cheeses, the jollof rices, the chickens, that the way they like it. They like white chicken. I don't know why. Like chicken that has no seasoning. So I'm just like, okay, cool, guys. I know. But outside of that, we've really come into our own with like decorations, right up from Halloween, where they want the pumpkins and everything, and they want carvings. We start there, and as soon as Thanksgiving dinner is done, Christmas decorations go up. So we're talking all the baubles, all the Christmas lights, all the pieces. Like I've come to a point where I just lift everything up and put that in the living room, and before you know it, they're like getting all the stuff out. They're putting everything what they want it to be. So I've got some little helpers and elves on my hands. So I'm very, very happy for that. They love Christmas, I think partly because of the presents, and they the first couple of years, I think they've gotten so many presents that it's like, and half the time they don't play with them or they don't utilize them effectively. And so part of being a parent is realizing when to not keep something that your child is not going to use. And so this year we're all about activities. So it's almost like we're priming a vacation. We're priming activities like karate, jujitsu, like things that kids can do that gets them out of the house and excited. We're priming like skill-based swim classes. We finally have them getting their basic survival training down. So now it's time to do laps and join the swim team. And so it's like being able to realize that those things hit home a lot more than just presents under the tree. Even though my kids have started this really funny priming thing where it's like, so there's this song called Peru. I've talked about it all the time, but there's an evolution to the story here. And so instead of them like just singing the normal, so I started singing the gospel one, and so they've taken to it. So it's like, one you want me, I'm in the presence of my daddy. They've just taken that, and so that's the version they like to sing now. But they sing the presence of my daddy or presents from my daddy part now, and I'm like, okay, so what are you, because of Christmas? So it's like they're like literally priming themselves for this big haul. I want a present from so I'm like, I don't know that this is what we talked about, but okay, so it's just realizing that the tree is going to be stuffed with certain things. I think this year that we're trying to figure out a theme for the presents. And like I said, with activities and things like that, and as well as music, introducing musical instruments.
Mm,
So
mm.
there's a part of, spoiler alert, as part of our presence, there's probably going to be like pianos, flutes, which is going to annoy the heck out of me, I know, if she doesn't play well. But there's that coming through, and then there's lessons coming out of that. So either piano
Yeah,
lessons or things like that. You already know that she loves tennis
yeah,
and she loves going out there, and so it's like she's getting an age appropriate racket instead of just using my rackets now. She loves
yeah.
pickleball. So there's all these type of things that we're getting. So it's like it's as scattershot as she can be, only for her to pick what it is that she likes specifically to do more
Right.
frequently. So I'm less and less going to be pushing for, let's go do this, let's go do that. You tell me what you love to do, and I will support.
Hmm.
Versus, I want you to do every single activity under the sun. So yeah, we're just trying here. So trust me, I'm not even doing anything special, and I applaud my wife for thinking of half these things. I'm just like, get them everything, get the toys, pay for it. But yeah, she's like, no, we have to be more strategic and play into their unique talents. So that's what we're trying to do.
And then speaking of like energy and just at the end of the day, um, like how do you end your day? What is bedtime like for you? I know you talked about the routine with the kids earlier, with the story time, with the show tunes, making the end of the night a performance on their end. But what about for you? When does sleep happen? How does sleep happen? How do you wind down after helping your kids through that process?
This was the funniest question that ever came in, because the person who sent it was like, literally, help, will sleep ever come? And
Oh,
I'm right there with you. I feel you. And they also have a unique setup where they have kids where that are have significant gap. So there's probably one that is, a
mm.
baby now, and then one that is, I think maybe 7 or 8. And so there's
Oh
there's a
wow.
gap there, but it is. I too want to know if sleep will ever come, because yeah, I know my kids have gone through a different phase. Like I said, when it's like they let you sleep and they're toddlers and they're on the clock. But now it's just so interesting, because I don't even know how to answer this question, because for me, you do all that, you've basically gone through a day of, like, award winning dad or mom performance, and it's now time for you to sleep, and you've struggled to put them to bed, and then you're for some reason wired, and you're not shutting down. I speak for myself. I'm not shutting down, because
Mm,
I have new independent sleepers, and they're sleeping in their individual bed in their rooms, and for the most part, the anxiety and the anticipation of them waking up and kicking me out of my California king keeps me up at night,
mm,
because so many
mm,
times I put them to bed and I think we're done with this fight, where it's like, oh, they're going to sleep through the night just like when they were babies and they were little. Nope. I wake up and somebody's
mm,
literally foot in my back, and I'm literally on one single, like, if I roll, I'm falling off the bed. So that, and a couple of times
mm,
I've fallen off the bed, and that terrorizes you to no end. and
mm,
and I know that there is, it's probably it's a me problem at this point in time. But part of the thing I know that has been able to solve it, and doesn't solve it all the way, is that I have to be alert to be able to take them back to their bed when they wake up and walk over to our room.
mm.
There's times when I've woken up and the camera has caught them downstairs by the front door, downstairs in the basement, downstairs looking for
Oh my god.
whatever it is that they're looking for, and I'm just like, okay, so that also adds to the anxiety, and I'm just like, okay, so you can't just lock your kids in the
Mm,
room. That's not safe. It is so interesting how to get that balance and how to get the sleep back, because I've tried everything from sleep buds to this and that, and yes, sleep does come, but the point is that you don't want to miss them, or you don't want them to lose their independence because you let them sleep in your bed. So it's an ongoing work in
mm,
progress. I can say it's a lot better than it was earlier, when we just used to let them just stay, because now we
mm,
actually have, when you put them down, we actually now can look towards the point where, okay, we can go get a drink downstairs, we can talk, we can plan, we can do a budget, we can do all these things at night. I can record
mm,
an episode of the pod, or I can do editing of the pod and things like that, or we can do whatever fun activity we want to do. But it is so elusive. A conversation I was having with a dad in a similar situation was like, he introduced this term of co-sleeping, and I was like, I never
Hmm.
thought about it like that, because it's essentially the fact that you have to sleep in their rooms to keep them there. Either you sleep on the floor, like how I do, and hold one person and hold the other person, and just kind of hold their hand until they fall asleep. But the fact that you're
Mm.
in the room gets them to stay down and stay there. But it's not sustainable,
Mm.
because you miss time with your partner. You miss time with that communication time, that time on your own, that time for
Mm.
you to sleep in whatever position you like to sleep in without having a child on your chest is so precious, and so important to your mental health, that we have to just keep trying. So as much as you see me every day, it's like, this is them. I put them down at 9 p.m. They go to bed. By midnight, they wake up.
Mm.
They're out. I'm in, putting them back in, singing the same song and dance, lullabies, whatever it is to make them go back to sleep. They go back to sleep, and at 3 a.m. we do the same song and dance again. Usually, the way my sleep cycle now works, because back in the early days, I used to be a 9 to 5 sleeper. So basically, I in bed by 9 p.m., awake by 5 a.m. Now it's more of I put them down at 9. I have 3 hours of just anxiety and just waiting. Just, are they going to wake up? Are they going? If they sleep past midnight, then I'm like, okay, now I can sleep. And then they wake me up
Mm.
at 3, and I'm just like, oh, this is not going to work. So it's very choppy, but I'm going to have to improve and do better.
Well, your kids are going to school, right?
Right.
In person. Okay.
Yeah, and that's an important difference, because Penelope is a great sleeper, great independent sleeper. She only wakes up because Paxton wakes her up, and I think so.
Mm.
She's ready to, she's just about there. But
Mm.
Paxton naps like there's no. I've never been so pissed at a nap at school. He naps in school, so when he comes back, he's like, "Oh,
Oh.
I'm ready to go. What's happening? It's, the day has started again. I've seen the dark has come and light has come back. So for him, the day's changed, but not quite for everybody
Mm.
else. So I think when he moves out of that daycare situation and then goes into proper day school where there are no naps, he has to adjust to it, and then we'll all get some good shut eye.
So going into this new year, the new year of 2022, we're still in the middle of a pandemic. You've learned a lot of things about, being a dad, being a parent. And I know a lot of people talk about New Year's resolutions being a thing, but going more so in line with a New Year intention, right? Because you do a lot of things with intention when it comes to, your personal life, but also parenthood. What are some of the things that you anticipate doing as a dad and for yourself to make sure that you're being the best person, like for your family, for your partner, for you?
This is such a good question, because it ties into something I've been trying to put into practice, based off of therapy and dealing with my issues. It is so 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 important to do, because I have, like I said, a lot of anxiety. I have a lot of impatience. I have a lot of issues that just kind of tend to not bode well with raising children. And so for me, it is, for the last couple of weeks, couple of months, I've tried to get all that in check. So it's like speaking to children, realizing that they're children, like letting kids be kids, staying calm no matter what. If food falls on the floor, it's just food on the floor. I can clean it up. If they make a mess, it's just a mess. You talk calmly and you clean it up. So it's less about blowing up when they do minor things, and more about just being intentional and making sure that you realize that whatever it is, you don't make them feel like they are doing something wrong. They're just doing what their minds tell them to do as children. They just need a little bit more direction. And so I've tried to just stay calm, stay present, stay available, stay a bit of support to them, and never escalate the situation past what it needs to be. And making sure that we are able to still connect, still bond, still be a family, but always making sure that they all know that I'm here for them. I'm here to support them, here to help, without making them feel bad, without making them feel sad, without yelling or escalating the situation. Because if I yell, they yell, and then it's all, the day is probably gone to waste. But it's very interesting to be able to kind of realize, like, I hear, it's almost like an out of body experience now. I hear myself and I'm talking to them calmly, even kill voice. So yeah, long may that continue. I want to stay in that frame of mind. It's tough. I will lose control from time to time, but just realizing to kind of dial it back and realize that, okay, you know what, that was hypersensitized. It was only a big deal to me in that moment, and I should be able to kind of catch myself and come back to center, meditate, take a break, do what I need to do, but don't let my feelings, my insecurities, my whatever affect their day and how they want to go through a situation and discover the world. Thank you for listening to this episode of Just Trying Dad. Please be sure to spread the word, tell a friend, and you can find us wherever podcasts can be found, on Spotify or Google Podcasts, and keep having the conversations, and we'll see you soon.